Memorial Day is often considered the unofficial start of summer, but it has felt anything but summer-like this last week with below average temperatures and also a recurring weather pattern that has featured a lot of rainfall into the month of May. In this week's edition of the Climate Friday newsletter, I'm going to break down where we stand in the weather department, both in terms of temperatures and rainfall over the course of the month of May. Now, May is statistically the wettest month of the calendar year. Believe it or not, that title goes to May and not April, and this one has really lived up to that expectation. Additionally, not surprisingly, it's been a cooler than average month of May. So we're going to break down the numbers here in this week's Climate Friday. If you're not already subscribed, you can head to WTOL.com/email for the latest sent straight to your inbox each and every week. So let's break down the overall numbers and where we stand in terms of temperatures and also rainfall. And we still do have a couple days left in the month of May. That'll likely fluctuate these numbers ever so slightly. So you can stay tuned to the WTOL 11 weather team for the latest on how the overall data pans out when we turn over the calendars into the start of June. Now, the average temperature this month has been well below average, not just a little below average, but a sizable 3.3 degrees below the May normal. And that goes to show that it has felt more like spring than an unofficial start of summer over the course of the last couple of weeks. The average temperature this May has been 58 degrees. Now, that includes both the daytime high as well as the overnight low, and both of those numbers have been substantially below average, and that is largely due to that upper level low that we talked about in last week's edition, and that was responsible for a sustained period of below normal conditions and also frequent clouds and rain showers. And this time of year, it is the cloudy weather that often makes those temperatures cooler than normal. So where do we stand in terms of rainfall? May is the wettest month of the year, even though you may think intuitively that goes to April. Due to its notoriety for April showers bringing May flowers, it is actually May that is the rainiest month of the calendar year, and we are still above average, about 2/3 of an inch above normal in the rainfall department, and area farmers know this very well. It did delay the spring planting for many folks with over 4 inches of May rainfall. Now, what's notable is how long-lived this cool down has been and how sustained it's been as well. There is currently, as of this recording, a 12-day stretch of cooler than average conditions, and that's as of Thursday. So it is possible that by the time you watch this, either Friday or over the weekend, this stretch is even longer. And as of this recording, May 18th through 29th is that colder than average stretch, which is almost 2 weeks of below average weather conditions. Certainly notable, especially when you consider it is the coldest second half of May in over 20 years. The last time that the latter half of May felt this cold, you have to go all the way back to 2003, where there was a span from May 16th through the end of May on the 31st, where that average temperature was only 57.3 degrees. Now, it is looking likely that even through the weekend, temperatures are going to be staying below average, and that is likely to affect those numbers and make the overall monthly normal even a bit lower. We really have been devoid of any major summer-like heat this month, and getting a 90-degree day in May is more common than you may expect. Our warmest, though, has been well shy of that number. On May 16th, we did hit 85 degrees. So the warmest day of the month actually came in the middle of the month, which is not surprising given how chilly the latter half of the month has been. What about the coldest day? Well, we didn't officially hit freezing, but there were still some frosty conditions on May 9th. That low temperature of 37 degrees, that is characteristic of an early May frost. And as I pointed out a few weeks ago in the Climate Friday newsletter, the typical last frost of the year happens on May 8th. So seeing those 30s in early May, not too far out of the ordinary. Now, what about some historic Mays of past years? If you look at the coldest May on record, we are still well above that chilly 52-degree reading. That was in 1907, and that was the coldest May ever recorded in modern history in the Toledo area. And keep in mind, that's the average of both the daytime highs and the overnight lows. What about the other side of the coin? The warmest May on record, that was in 1911, just a couple years later, with a 67.4 degree average temperature. And that's certainly impressive when you consider that's not just the average high temperature, that is both the overnight lows and the daytime highs factored in. So it's interesting that both the warmest and the coldest May both happened within just a couple of years of each other. So here's a list of the warmest Mays on record. 1911, of course, takes the cake at 67.4, and then just a few tenths 1/4 of a degree. Below that was 1880. And of course, the weather sensing data back then wasn't quite as sophisticated as it is today, so there could be a little bit more variation in those numbers. But the data back in 1880 does show 67.1 degrees on the thermometer. 91 with an average temperature of 67 degrees. And then in more recent history, you may remember 2018 certainly felt like a summery start to the season with an average temperature just shy of 67 degrees. And rounding out the top 5, another one from the late 19th century of 66.5. This May, keep in mind, our average is about 58 degrees, so we are almost 10 degrees cooler than those warmest Mays on record. Now, what about rainfall? Even though we've seen an inundation of rainfall this month, we are still well shy of these historically rainy Mays. Taking the top spot on the list as the wettest May on record, that was 1943 with over 8 inches of precipitation. And that is remarkable because this is the wettest month of the calendar year. A normal May features 3.82 inches of rain, so that was almost double the typical amount of rain that you might expect during the month of May. 1892 is the second wettest May on record with just shy of 7.5 inches, and at about 7.39 was 1913. The only in the latest 21st century is 2000 on this list with 6.8 inches of precipitation, and 97, just a couple years earlier, we got about 6 3/4 of an inch of rainfall. Now, even though it's been an awfully chilly stretch of weather, especially over the latter half of May, we are expecting a shift in the weather pattern, and this is likely to bring us above average temperatures. In fact, this warmer than normal weather pattern is going to be felt by much of America, especially across the eastern seaboard, through the mid-Atlantic region, and then back towards the southern Atlantic coast and towards the Great Lakes. And this weather map takes us all the way through June 12th. So the first 2 weeks of June likely to be above average, and especially in north central and eastern Ohio, the darker the orange color, the higher the confidence in warmer than normal conditions. For northwest Ohio back towards Michigan, there is still a good deal of confidence that we're going to be experiencing a number of days in the 80s, and by this point in the year, our normal high is in the upper 70s. So seeing those 80s not too far out of the ordinary, but likely going to be in the mid to upper 80s in that 10-day forecast. I'm going to wrap up the data as the month of May officially comes to an end in the next couple weeks of the Climate Friday newsletter, so be sure to stay tuned. Now, as we head towards the summer season, which is just right around the corner, it is likely that we are going to have some warmer summer days. Of course, there are individual daily and weekly weather patterns that do cause those changes in the weather, but there's also a climate link of summer warming, and that is a trend that has occurred especially notably over the last half century. The average temperature during the summer season is now about 4 degrees warmer in 2024 based on data comparing it to 1970. Now, you will notice a lot of ups and downs. The overall trend line is going up, but there is certainly year-to-year variation that has occurred, and the number of 90-degree days is going way up. Comparing data in the 21st century back towards 1970, over the last 50 years or so, we have seen an average of 13 more 90-degree days per year. Now, we didn't get a single 90 during the month of May, and that goes to show that the weather pattern resulting from the jet stream does often override that broader trend due to climate change. So we'll see if that trend continues into June, but I think with the way things are looking, there could very well be a 90-degree day during the first half of the month of June. As we flip over the calendars and inch towards the summer season, be sure to subscribe to that Climate Friday newsletter and follow along on social media, and we'll send the next week's edition straight to your inbox.